Okay, let's unpack this. It really is like a scene from a historical drama, but everything slipped on its head. You've got the UK, the nation that once, ran a vast empire, now kind of struggling after leaving the EU, its main trading partners. And they have to fly halfway across the world, basically knocking on the door of India, its former colony, looking for a massive economic lifeline. It's not fiction. This is the reality behind the recent UK-India Free Trade Agreement, the FTA. We've done a deep dive into the sources covering this partnership, and it's crystal clear this isn't just your standard trade deal about like cutting taxes on goods. No, this feels much bigger. It seems to represent a fundamental shift, a real rearrangement of global economic power. It's a moment where the West really has to reckon with India's incredible rise. So our mission today is twofold. First, to get into the nitty-gritty of the agreement itself, the zero tariffs, the investments, that sort of thing. But also, maybe more importantly, to understand the geopolitical shockwaves, especially the anxiety it seems to be causing over in Washington, D.C. And yeah, speaking of anxiety, the headline that jumps out from our sources is pretty amazing. America feels India kind of played the India card and basically hoodwinked them. Think about it. India pushed back against huge U.S. pressure for a trade deal for years, just wouldn't sign. And then almost immediately, they turn around and sign this massive zero tariff deal with the UK. The word is the American administration was, well, utterly stunned.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And the high stakes, they were obvious right from the start. This wasn't just some routine visit. The sources describe it as an historical turning point. The whole power equation just shifted completely. For the first time in what? Centuries. The relationship moved away from that old colonial dynamic. Now it's about parity. Yeah. Absolute parity. India isn't just a partner anymore. India is, it seems, setting the terms now.
And you could almost feel that shift, apparently, when the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, arrived in Mumbai. The sources said the atmosphere was just. You could feel history changing.
Absolutely. And just look at the size of the delegation he brought. That tells you everything about what was at stake for the UK. Starmer didn't just bring a few officials. He had over 100 top industrialists with him. That signals, enormous economic hope riding on this trip. The UK's motivation was clearly intense. It was driven by, well, domestic need.
Yeah, the sources really hammer that point home. They link it directly to the UK's economic struggles after Brexit. Since leaving the EU, they've faced a shrinking market in Europe, stubborn inflation, job losses. Investors were getting nervous about London, too. The UK economy, according to these reports, was genuinely shaking.
So this deal, back home in Britain, it's seen almost like an economic rescue mission, a big injection of economic oxygen for a nation that was struggling. And that's what makes the historical irony just so sharp, so pointed. You have the UK, the country that launched its empire from India, basically, centuries ago, now standing at India's door, asking for trade, asking for investment, really for its own economic survival.
The sources even use language like the UK was begging for trade. That sounds incredibly strong. Is that reflecting the real power dynamic, or is it just eye-catching hyperbole?
Yeah, definitely dramatic language, yeah. But I think it captures the imbalance of need pretty accurately. India's economy is growing fast. The UK's has been, well, stagnant. So when Prime Minister Starmer lands in Mumbai, the very city where the East India Company started its operations, and brings 100 CEOs to try and impress Indian leaders, it just underlines how much that power balance has totally flipped. The sources confirm it. For the British government, for their media, getting this deal done became an existence struggle. They really needed this win, politically and economically. Badly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's dive into the actual deal, the mechanics of it. Because while the UK was maybe desperate for a quick win, India clearly wasn't rushed at all. The sources point out this took 4 years. 4 years and 14 rounds of really tough, detailed negotiations.
And that patience, that strategic approach, it paid off massively for India. It really shows how India operates now strictly based on strategy, on national interest. Not on, old ties or pressure.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they had the stronger position, so they could take their time, make sure they got the best possible terms, maximum concessions.
And you can see those concessions in the main achievement for India, can't you?
Precisely. The key win for India is, frankly, staggering.
Yeah.
99% of Indian goods will go to the UK with zero tariff. That is just a huge boost for Indian manufacturing, for exports. For instance, the sources mentioned sectors like textiles, footwear, some electronics. Big employers, big revenue earners in India, they benefit immediately from this zero tariff access.
So we're not just talking small cuts here. This is removing barriers almost completely for nearly everything India wants to sell to the UK.
Exactly. And that's also why the deal is so politically crucial for Starmer back home. It's a clear commercial win he can point to. They've set this really ambitious target, too. Trade is currently around $56 billion, right? The goal is to nearly double that, $112 billion by 2030, doubling it. That shows the sheer scale of the economic commitment they're making.
What made the UK willing to give such a favorable deal practically zero tariffs? It seems like it boils down to India's market size, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The sources really stress this point. The relationship is now based on parity. No master, no servant, as one put it. India's leverage is that enormous, rapidly growing consumer base. We're talking 1.4 billion people, 140 crore consumers. India isn't just seen as a place to sell things to anymore. It's viewed as global investment capital, a place you have to be invested in.
And big British companies seem to have got that message loud and clear. You see CEOs from huge names, Airwaves, the London Stock Exchange, British Telecom. They're not just thinking about exports. They're focused on long-term investment, getting access to that booming Indian middle class, getting involved in infrastructure projects.
And the deal isn't only about goods and tariffs either. The sources note India pushed hard for and got better movement for its skilled workers and professionals going to the UK. Reciprocity meant the UK got some openings too, especially in financial services. But India's focus was clearly strategic. Tech transfer, more investment flowing in, and a bigger footprint for Indian giants like Tata, Infosys, Reliance in the UK. The UK side estimates the deal will create maybe 7,000 jobs in Britain, which is good, but they definitely paid a significant price for that market access.
Okay, so we've got the UK's urgent need, India's strategic victory. Let's pivot now to Washington, D.C., because the reaction there, the anxiety, it seems really palpable. We mentioned the administration was stunned, and U.S. business leaders are apparently complaining quite openly that the U.K. basically leapfrogged them. I mean, just think about the political signal that sends globally. India says no to the U.S. for years on a trade deal, resists all that pressure, and then immediately signs a zero tariff deal with the U.K. It feels like a massive diplomatic statement, almost a snub.
And that's where the analysis from the think tanks gets really interesting. They're debating, was this deliberate? Did India intentionally play the India card? Using the UK talks as leverage to sort of shock the US into recognizing India's market power and its independence. Washington's fear isn't just about losing out on some trade dollars. It's about their global grip loosening, as the sources put it.
It sounds like a bit of economic ego is involved too, maybe. The source material suggests that, no established superpower likes seeing the world's biggest consumer market making its own strategic moves outside of their direct influence.
Exactly. The U.S. media seems to see this whole thing as a major wake-up call. There's real concern that if India can do this with the UK, maybe Europe, maybe other Asian countries will start doing the same game, prioritizing their own national interests over automatically aligning with Washington. This deal really underlines that India is now, completely independent in its decision-making. It's not bowing to American pressure. And that fundamentally changes the whole strategic picture in Asia.
And that independence gets reinforced by the other parts of the agreement, the non-trade stuff. India seems to be cleverly using this deal to boost its own strategic capabilities. That's a big part of autonomy, right?
That's a really critical point, yes. Needs emphasis. The sources highlight significant cooperation